A few weeks ago, I did a tour of my smart home dashboard inside of Home Assistant and showed you sort of the layout and gave you some ideas and inspiration for your own dashboards too. And then a couple of weeks after that, we did a guide on how to actually create a similar looking dashboard that sort of gave you 90% of the looks, but it was a lot easier and quicker to actually achieve the results with pretty much the exact same looks. This week, we're going to be doing the hard mode, the long-awaited hard mode that a lot of you guys have been requesting. So this is the way that I did my dashboard. So if you follow along with this video, you should be able to recreate my dashboard exactly as I did. Now, this is not easy. I'm going to tell you up front, this is not easy. It's all done in code. So I am going to assume that you're a bit more of an advanced Home Assistant user, and we are going to move through this a bit quicker than we did in the previous video. So if you're looking for something a bit easier, make sure to go back and check out the previous video. But if you want to do something a bit harder and you're up for the challenge, then follow along with this video as we go through it. I'm going to also assume that you have some basic YAML knowledge also as we go through this. We'll also be jumping around into a lot of different pages and sort of all over the place, so I'll have all the links for everything you need down in the description so that you can follow along too. A lot of this is actually copy and paste, so once you get over some of the initial concepts, it is just copy and paste and sort of repetitive code, but just so you are aware, it is a bit more difficult. Finally, I have submitted some of my custom cards from the last time that we looked at this. I have submitted them into the Minimalist project. Minimalist, by the way, is the project that we're using for this dashboard. So I have submitted my cards into the project. Some of them have already been merged, some of them are still waiting, and I haven't got around to finishing some of them yet. But I'll also add all of those links for all the custom cards that I use in this video down in the description. So strap in, strap on, and get yourself a coffee.
You're such an idiot.
Thank you to Anker for sponsoring this video. Anker is one of the world's #1 mobile charging brands, developing charging technology for 10 years with millions of products sold all over the world, including long-lasting portable power stations, and their new Anker 521 portable power station is no different. The Anker 521 is a 5-port portable powerhouse with a solar generator, an AC port, 2 USB-A ports, a USB-C port, and a vehicle class outlet. The 521 pumps out 256 watt-hours of power and is extremely durable and long-lasting due to its premium lithium iron phosphate batteries that offer 6 times longer lifespan with rapid recharging and can be recharged to 80% in just 1.5 hours. The unique batteries can be used 3,000 times and still remain at 80% capacity, allowing this portable beast to go the distance over the years to come. With the 521, you can charge multiple devices simultaneously, allowing up to 20 charges of your phone or 4 full laptop charges. It also sports a drop-proof unibody structure and industry-standard electric components for enhanced durability. The smart display shows you at a glance the remaining battery percentage, which port or outlet is currently being used, and the output power. It also features a handy LED strip for those low light conditions, plus the power saving mode allows you to reduce energy waste. The Anker 521 comes with a 5-year guarantee and is perfect for a weekend away, camping, or a garden party. You name it, the Anker 521 has the power you need. Check out the Anker 521 portable power station with the link in the video description. So there's a few windows you're probably going to want to have open as we go through this. Firstly, you're going to want to have Home Assistant open. Obviously, that's where we're going to be doing our dashboard. On the left-hand side, I've got a narrow window that's going to be a preview for our mobile dashboard, just so we can actually see what our dashboard looks like. And then on the right-hand side, in the bigger window, we have our Home Assistant instance. And in Home Assistant, you're also going to need Visual Studio Code installed, and you're also going to need HACS installed also. Then in another tab, I would suggest having open the Minimalist UI GitHub, as well as in a second tab have the Minimalist documentation open too. Both of those things are going to help us with the code for our cards as well as custom cards. So back in HACS, the first thing you're going to want to do is go over into integrations and then add a new integration and search for Minimalist. Download the Minimalist integration And then before you restart Home Assistant to add Minimalist, there's a few other dependencies that we need to add too. You can have Minimalist auto add these entities, but I prefer to do them manually. So first custom integration we need to find is the browser mod. So make sure to have browser mod installed. So install browser mod as well as auto entities. Button card. Lovelace card mod. Mini graph card. Mini media player. My card slider. Light entity card. And finally, simple weather card. So make sure to install all of those additional cards for Minimalist to actually work. Once you've installed all those, make sure to hit the reload button and then also go over and hit restart on your Home Assistant instance to load Minimalist. Once restarted, go over to configuration and then devices and services and then hit add integration and search for Minimalist. There's a couple of options that we do have here, so I would suggest ticking the enable creation of dashboard button. You can also give it a title, so we can set this to Minimalist. Set an icon if you want to, and then what I'm going to do is suggest that you select the desktop theme as a starter. So what this will actually do, so the mobile theme will actually get rid of the top bar, so you won't see that anymore. The desktop one does have the top bar in it, and the reason I'm suggesting using that initially is that it makes it easier to refresh the page to see your changes if you have that enabled. The mobile tap bar gets rid of the top bar but puts the navigation bar down at the bottom near where your thumbs are if you want to go for that route, and then you can leave it on HA selected. But I would suggest going for Minimalist desktop initially and then changing it to mobile after. For the final option, make sure to leave include custom card resources unticked because we've already went and manually installed those resources. And if you tick that, it's going to sort of double up duplicate resources, which you don't want. So leave that unticked and then hit submit. And then all we need to do now is to go into our configuration for Home Assistant and add our theme directory if you haven't already done so. So down at the very bottom of your configuration, just on a new line, you're going to paste in these two lines, which essentially add the custom themes into Home Assistant. And I'll leave the code for this down in the description if you haven't already done it. The majority of people have already done this so that they can use third-party themes. Once you've done this, again, go and restart your Home Assistant for that to take effect. Then go over to your user profile in the bottom left-hand corner. And this should now show you some themes that you can actually select. So again, I'm going to suggest selecting Minimalist Desktop initially, and then once you finish, you can come back in and select Minimalist Mobile, and that's going to get rid of that top bar for you. So select Minimalist Desktop, and then click on the icon for our new Minimalist dashboard, which should be showing up in the left-hand corner. If we installed all of the resources correctly, you should see that when you load the page, it's already built sort of a stock dashboard for you. And this confirms that all of our resources are added correctly and everything is working and showing up properly. Now let's get in and actually start coding our own dashboard. Before we start creating our own dashboard, I do want to just explain the documentation page and the GitHub page to you before we get started, just so that it makes sense as we're going through things. So on the documentation page, again, link in the description, you'll find a page that looks like this, and this is basically the Wikipedia or the documentation for Minimalist. It explains how to install it, which we've already done. But also, if you come over to the usage page, this will actually give you a list of all of the cards that are available in Minimalist, as well as how to use them and all of the variables and attributes that you can use with those cards. And it also shows you the custom cards that are available in here too. So over on the left hand side, you'll see that we have cards, and then we can go through and sort of select all of the available cards in Minimalist, and it's going to show you sort of a picture of what they look like, as well as the documentation and all of the variables, as well as some code example for how to use those cards, which is really handy. And this is what we're going to basically copy and paste into our dashboard, sort of start building it that way. So these are all the default cards that are included in Minimalist under this cards menu. So by default, you can use all of these cards in here without having to do any extra work. And you also see that we have chips as well. So those are those little sort of widgets up at the top and the little badges for different things. So we've got the back one, we've got the alarm chip, we've got navigation, we've got power. All of those chips, they are also included by default in Minimalist. And you'll also see that we have a custom cards menu. So everything under the custom cards menu is inside of the Minimalist repository in GitHub, but it's not included by default in the Minimalist installation. So you do need to do a bit of extra work if you want to use any of these cards. If you don't want to use any of these cards, you don't need to worry about this. But just so you know, anytime that we are using a custom card, you do need to initially create the card first inside of Home Assistant before you can use it. Any of the default cards, you can go ahead and use them right away, but the custom cards do need a little bit more work to use them at first. And to find those custom cards in GitHub, just come to the main GitHub page and then click into the custom cards repository, and you'll see a list of all of the custom cards, as well as, again, any of their documentation for those cards. So here's the welcome card that I contributed back to Minimalist. You can go in and see how to use it, as well as any of the example code and all of the code there for you to actually use. So just be aware that is where to find custom cards and how to use custom cards in Minimalist. We'll show you how to use them, or an example of how to use them as we go through it. So once you have the default dashboard working in Minimalist, go ahead and go over into Visual Studio Code, and we'll have a look at the layout for Minimalist. So if we go into the custom components folder that should now be appearing, you'll also have a UI Lovelace Minimalist, and this is all of the code for Minimalist, as well as the default cards, default chips, themes, everything like that. They are all in this folder. You don't really need to worry about this folder too much at all, so just close that one up. You don't really need to go in there unless you're doing anything custom. You'll also see that we have another UI Lovelace Minimalist folder a little bit further down. And inside of there is a custom cards folder, which doesn't have anything in it. But if you do use custom cards, this is where we are going to create them, as well as we have a dashboard folder with our first dashboard page. So this code inside of here is the code for that first initial dashboard that we just took a look at. And we're going to get rid of all of this in a second. The reason that this custom cards folder is here and not in the other Minimalist folder inside of the custom components is that anytime you update Minimalist from HACS, that folder gets overwritten. So any of your custom cards would be overwritten. So make sure to put them inside of this custom cards folder here and not inside of the custom components folder. Otherwise they will be overwritten. If in doubt, just make sure to take a backup of your Minimalist folder just in case anything does get overwritten. So the first thing we're actually going to do is to come into our UI Lovelace.yaml file. And we're going to get rid of everything underneath views. So just delete all of this sample code. We don't want to use any of it at the moment. And that leaves us with 8 lines that look like this. And we can even get rid of this comment here. You can also get rid of the theme file if you want to just do everything in your profile, and that keeps things a little bit simpler. And that leaves us with a title. So for the title, we're just going to change this to Minimalist. So we're going to use this UI-lovelace.yaml file as a place that loads all of our other views and all of our other rooms. So I like to have each room as its own view. And to include a view inside of Lovelace or inside of Minimalist, this is actually a YAML thing, so you just use an include line like so. So we're going to do view/home.yaml. Oh, make sure to add a hyphen at the start of your include so that it works. I'm going to call my main page, so the first page that you see on your dashboard is going to be called home.yaml inside of the views folder. So that's all you need to do to include another file inside of your YAML. And you'll notice that we actually need to create the views folder first. So we go create folder and we'll call this views. And inside of the views folder, we need to create another file called home.yaml. So there we go, inside of our dashboard folder, we have another folder called views, And then we have a file inside of there called home.yaml. It's worth noting that you can include the folder as a whole so that you don't have to come in and manually add each view, but I prefer to do it this way. You can do it the way that you prefer. So I've done mine like this. We've included home.yaml. And you'll see if we navigate over to our minimalist page, it'll just give us a blank dashboard with nothing on it, but at least this confirms that we have loaded our view correctly. So that's basically all we need to do for our UI-Lovelace page. Basically, that's going to load all of our other rooms and other views. If we now head over into home.yaml, we're going to start this off with a title. So type title and then just give it a name. So we'll call it home. And then we also need to add a path. So if you remember from the mushroom guide, if you followed along with that one, the path is basically the URL or how to navigate to that view. So again, we'll just enter path as home. And then on the next line, we just start typing cards. So this is where we're going to start entering our cards. So we are now good to actually start adding some minimalist cards in here. So if you remember back to the original dashboard that I did that we're going to be recreating, you'll remember that I had a welcome card that had navigation to other rooms on it. And you will find this inside of the minimalist repository. So this is one of the cards I've contributed back. It looks a little bit like this. And basically we need to start creating the structure for this custom card. So remember I said that custom cards, you will need to actually create the folders and files manually first, but all of the default cards are available to just start using. Anyways, inside of the custom cards folder, create a new folder. And then we need to copy the name of the custom card exactly. So call it custom card ESH _ welcome as our folder. And then again, we create the same file inside of there. So custom card ESH welcome.yaml. And where you can find that information is if you go into the GitHub and check the custom card, you'll see the name of that is here as well as up here. So basically just copy these values into your folder. Go into the YAML file that is on GitHub and basically just copy all of this code. Copy that and then paste it into your custom card.yaml files. Now, if we go back to our home page, that is now available for us to use as a custom card. But also, if you head back to the GitHub and look on the documentation page, which is here, I've also included, as well as all of the other custom cards, they all include some template code or some sample code that you can copy and paste into your dashboard and then tweak the values to suit your dashboard. So underneath cards, we're going to paste in that sample code that comes from the custom card on GitHub, and that looks something a little bit like this. We will need to go through and change these values to suit our environment. You'll need to suit them to your entities and your sort of sensors as well as navigation, everything like that. But that's how to basically work with this custom card. If we were to refresh this, it wouldn't actually work because this custom card needs an input toggle as well as a weather sensor to be able to use it. And if we go back to the documentation, it will give you a list of all of the entities that are actually required for this custom card. You can see it tells you if the variable is actually required and also how to use it. Make sure to check on the docs just to make sure you're doing things correctly. So by taking a look at the docs, you'll see that it's telling us that we need to create an input boolean that gives us that toggle button at the top that allows us to collapse as well as expand the welcome card. So let's create that input boolean first so that we can see what our welcome card looks like. Head over into configuration and then devices, helpers, and then add a new helper and choose the toggle helper. We'll just give this a name of minimalist dropdown. Hit create and then go back to our code. And we'll just start changing these entities to suit our needs. So we need to change the triggers update buttons. So that's going to be input boolean minimalist dropdown. And we'll also need to change this second input boolean down here. So input boolean and also we need to change the weather to your weather entity. If you can't remember the name of your entity, sometimes it's handy to just have a second window open that will tell you, or that you can quickly search for your entities. So copy this, paste it into our weather variable. And if we now refresh our page, so by the way, if you hit the three dots in the top right hand corner and click on refresh, that's going to trigger a refresh. And if we did everything correctly, that now shows up as our welcome card. So our welcome card is showing, and we can also toggle. It's got our welcome message as well as the settings button, which takes us into configuration. And it's got all of our navigation at the bottom. These navigation buttons don't do anything since we haven't yet programmed them, but that is a good start and sort of the first card that we're going to create. Next card we want to do is those person cards. So we have a person card for me and a person card for Sarah right under our welcome cards. And those are a default or a stock card built into Minimalist, and they are really easy to use. Under the welcome card code, we're just going to leave a little bit of a space. And then we want to use a horizontal stack for this. So a lot of you guys asked me in the previous video why I didn't use a grid card. Simple answer is I like to keep most of my items just in pairs. I don't want any more than two. So a horizontal stack is nice and easy. And also for beginners, it's easier. I think a horizontal stack is easier. If you want to use a grid card because you want more than two icons, or you find a grid card easier to use, go ahead and use the grid card. I just prefer using horizontal stack. So for this, we're going to use horizontal stack, and then on the in the cards for horizontal stack. So this is now ready to accept our person cards. If we head over to the documentation for the person card, so you'll find that up here inside of the default cards. Click on person card, and you'll see it gives you again a screenshot or an image of what it looks like, as well as all of the variables that you can actually use if they're required, as well as some notes. So make sure to pay attention to those. And underneath there, we have our sample code that we can literally just copy and paste into our Visual Studio. And then we should be able to sort of tweak that to our needs. Paste that into our horizontal stack. It's just got a little bit out of whack, so make sure to pay attention to your indentation. And we just need to tweak some of these variables. So I'm going to get rid of the address because I don't want that, and I'll select my person. So basically all we're doing here is pasting in the sample code and then changing it to suit our entities. First entity we'll change is the name of the person. And that is actually all we need to change for this code. So you can go ahead and change or add in zones if you want. So you can add a work zone. And this is sort of the information it will display on the card when these zones are active. I'll leave the defaults for now. And then if we refresh our dashboard, you'll see that it's now added our person card. Don't worry about the entities I'm using. So I'm using a test instance of Home Assistant, so I don't have access to all of my regular sensors. So I might reuse sensors, and sensors might look a bit weird, but it's just for demo purposes. You'll see it's added our person card on one row, but we've only got one person there and it's taking up the full row. So all we need to do is just copy basically our code that we've already done, and on a new line, paste that in and then change it to our second person. Hit refresh. And you'll see it has added our second person card in there. Again, make sure to check on the variables and read the notes about what you can actually do with them, because some of them do have a lot of options and a lot of different options and things you can do and unlock some really cool cards. So there is our welcome card done. Our people card is also done. Underneath here, we just want to add a simple title. That was what was on our original dashboard. We just had a title that said rooms on it. And this is probably the easiest card inside of Minimalist to add. In the next section, not in a horizontal stack, so we don't need a horizontal stack for this one. You'll click on title card over in Minimalist, copy the code, and you'll see here, if we just take a quick note of the variables, you'll see that name is the main title, so it'll be in a bigger font. And then if we use label, that is a subtitle or a smaller font if you don't want to have a big font in the title. So copy the code and paste it in here, same as before, fix the formatting. And if we just save this, I'll just show you what the main title and the subtitle looks like. This is the main title up here, and then we have subtitle underneath. I'm going to use the main title for this one, so I can just get rid of label and then change the name to say rooms. And there we go. The only other thing we need to add is our room navigation. So you'll remember I like to have all of my navigation broken out into rooms. You can do this however you want. You can break this out into lights or switches, power cards, sensors, whatever you want, you can start doing that. I'm going to do rooms, and I like to use my room card for this. So I have contributed this room card that you see here into the main Minimalist. It's still waiting to be approved. In the meantime, until that happens, I will leave the link to where you can find this down in the description until it gets added to the main repository. Again, we need to go ahead and create the structure for this custom card because it's the first time that we're using it. And basically, again, you just find the name of the card up here, custom card ESH room. Head back to your custom cards folder inside of Minimalist and add a new folder, paste in the name of the card, and then create a new file inside of there called custom card ESH room.yaml. That's going to create our YAML file for our custom card. Head back to GitHub and then into the provided YAML file and then just copy all of this code and then paste it into our newly created file. And that is now that custom card ready to use, and we can go back to our main view. So again, underneath there, we just want to start creating some horizontal stacks or grid cards if you're using grid card. So horizontal stack, cards, and then I'm just going to grab the sample code from the GitHub page. Again, there is sample code for this card. Copy that and paste it into our main YAML file. This card is relatively simple. Up at the top we tell it which template we want to use, and you can change the color here depending on what your needs are. We give it a name, so we'll leave this one as bathroom. The entity is the main light entity for that room, so when you press the toggle button for the lights, it's going to turn that light on. So you need to change this to whichever light you want to control for that room. So for this one, we're going to change this to light dot, what have I got? We'll change this to light.groupLights. I don't have many lights in this instance, but that'll do for this one. You can change the icon to whatever you want. I'll leave that as bathtub. And then under the tap action, we have our navigation path. So again, this is the path that is going to be inside of the bathroom.yaml file that we will create in a minute. Just choose a path that is logical and makes sense to you for this example. The final variable we have is for the label. So I want to display a room temperature, and I've already created a template inside of this for you to use. All you need to do is change the entity, and let's just find a temperature entity that we can use. So we'll just use this one as an example. And we're going to paste that into our entity here. And that is all we really need to change for that custom card. So if we hit refresh just to see what it looks like, if you get a message saying that card ESH room is missing or your custom card whenever you add it, it just means you need to actually reload Minimalist when you do it. So head over to the page where you can restart Home Assistant, scroll down and you'll see that we have a UI Lovelace Minimalist. Just click on that to reload it and then hit the refresh button again, and it should load that custom card in for you. And as soon as it refreshes, that is now showing our custom room card. And if we click on it, it will change the icon yellow when the light is on and turn it off again when it's off. If we click on the card, it's not actually going to do anything because we haven't configured our view for bathroom yet, but you do get an idea of what it looks like. Let's go ahead and create a second card just so you can see what they look like in a row. Essentially, all we're doing is just copying and pasting that initial code that we already did. And again, just paste that code in that you have there, change the entities, and then refresh the page. Hit refresh. And you'll see that is what our room cards look like. Obviously I'm using the same lights and the same temperature, but it does give you an idea of what they look like. And the code is quite easy. Basically just rinse and repeat, copy and paste, change the entities, and you're good to go. That is all we're going to do for the main page. Obviously, if you wanted to add more room cards, you just need to copy and paste this whole horizontal stack. Just keep creating horizontal stacks, paste it in the code, change the entities, and you're good to go as to adding more cards. Let's now actually create an individual room. So we'll go ahead and create the bathroom view. Head back to your UI-Lovelace file, and we're going to include a new view. Include view/bathroom.yaml, just like that. And again, if we go, we need to create a new bathroom.yaml file in our views folder, like this. And then again, we're going to start with title, bathroom, and path, again, bathroom. If I were to now hit refresh, and then click on our bathroom view. You'll see it does take us in, but it's just a blank page once again. But that does prove that the view is working, and you can see the views up at the top here. The first thing I want to add is the chip for the back button so that we can navigate back and forth between the home page and our rooms. If we head over to the documentation and then open up this chips menu and view all of the various chips, you'll see that we have a back chip, and that gives us the backwards navigation to our page. Let's again just copy the code for that. Hit the copy button, head back to code, and then on a new line or a new section, paste that code in, and all we need to do is change the path. Because we defined a path in our home file, we can just literally type in home or whatever the path for your home navigation page is, and then if we now go into bathroom, hit refresh, that navigation chip or the back chip is now going to show up, and it should actually bring us back to our home page, so we can navigate now between both rooms. That is looking really good. Underneath there, I'm just going to add a title for bathroom. Enter bathroom. And then if you remember from the original dashboard, we had two graph cards right at the top, one for temperature and one for humidity. Those are actually default cards already built in again, so they are really handy. Head over to graph card on Minimalist, and it looks a little something like this. So this is showing a temperature. Again, all of the description and the variables that you can use are included here, and we can just copy the sample code and change it to our needs. Copy that. And this time we're going to create a horizontal stack just to have those two custom cards next to each other. Paste in that code for the graph, and then start setting or changing our entities to suit. For this one, I'm going to call this temperature, and the sensor is going to be one of my temperature sensors. And all I want on this graph is one value. You can add multiple values into this graph if you want to. Again, check the variables and check the attributes that you can select. I only want one for this one, so I'm going to bin out this entity 2 and color 2, get rid of those. And for the hours, we'll set, let's leave it at 24. Hit refresh and see what that looks like. Pretty good. We've got our temperature card showing on there. It's just one card, so let's add the second one by just simply copying and pasting. Change the second card to say humidity, and change the sensor to be humidity also. We probably also want to change the color just so they look separate and it's easy to tell them apart, so we'll change that to red. Hit refresh, and we should now have two cards showing up right next to each other. Really simple to add those cards, and hopefully you're seeing how easy it is to just copy and paste, sort of build out your dashboard that way. On the next row down, I'm just going to add a title because we had a title that said devices, so this was our device control section, and you'll also remember that we had a sensor section as well. I'm going to set the label on this one instead, so that'll be label devices. Make sure to just get your indentation correct. It should try and warn you, or it should warn you if your indentation is off. There we go for that one. And then I'm going to create another horizontal stack, which is going to house some of our controllable devices. So we'll add a light and also a fan in here, just so you can see a couple of different cards. This time I want to use the light card, so again there is a default card for that. As well as the default card, there is also this color picker light card, and also counter lights cover cards. Some of them do different things, and they also expand on the original card. They're there if you want to use them, or you can use the original. I actually quite like the stock card for this. It's got quite a lot of functionality, and you can see all of the different screenshots for the different options that you can have with the light card. Copy the sample code and just start pasting that in. Again, set your formatting, and we'll start changing some of the entities. So we've got group lights, and we can leave all those variables just as the default, just to see what that looks like. Let's also add in a fan card. So I have a fan, or I've got a fan inside of Home Assistant here. There is a custom card for fan that has sliders as well as some other options. You can use that one if you want to. Unfortunately, my fan isn't compatible because it only supports on and off. It doesn't have different sliders. I can't use this card, but if you have a fan that supports that, go ahead and use that. The card that I like to use for my fan is just the power outlet card. It's basically just an on-off toggle card, and it looks something like this. You can also add power consumption on here if you have a sensor that supports it, or you can leave it off. You don't have to use it with this card. Copy that, paste it in here. So if you have a sensor that is measuring power consumption, then that is where you add it in here. I don't have that on this instance, so I can just get rid of that and change my entity to fan.bathroom, and we'll just call this fan. Let's have a quick look at what that looks like, and you'll see that we now have our light card as well as our fan card. The only thing I want to change here is that you'll see even when the lights are off, the card is already expanded and it's already got this slider on it, which is okay, but I do want to change that back. So if we go back over into the cards and into the light card, we take a quick look at the documentation, you'll see that there is a variable called enable collapse. So if we copy that, head back to our code, and then under the variables section, along with the rest of the variables, we'll put that to true. Refresh that, see what it looks like. And that now collapses our card for us. If we turn on, it will expand the card and give us a toggle. If we turn it off, the card goes back in. So that is looking great. The final device card I want to add is just a cover card. So I'm just trying to show you a couple of different cards and a couple of different sensors and devices that you could use with it. Obviously there is tons of cards here and you need to choose the ones that are suitable for your environment, but it's just to kind of give you an idea of how to use some of the cards. Let's choose a cover card. Again, you'll see it's got a nice slider as well as up and down arrows. Also quite a lot of options for controlling that card. Click on copy code, and because this is the only entity I'm going to have in this row, and sometimes it's nice to have a full width card for a cover card because of that slider, so that you have a lot of room to move the cards and choose positions. We'll just set this as a full width card. So this is going to be cover.bathroom blind, and we can leave the defaults for there also. Hit refresh, and that is what our cover card looks like. If you want to change the buttons to be left and right, so say it's a curtain instead of a blind, you don't want up and down arrows, but you want left and right arrows, you'll see that there is a variable called left and right over here, so we can copy that, paste it into our variable section and set that to be true. And that changes the buttons to left and right to make more sense for a curtain. So that is it for our devices section. The last section we are going to create today is our sensors section. So paste in a title and we'll just call this sensors. And there's a few cards that are actually good to use for sensors. You remember on the original dashboard, you will see that on the left hand side we have a binary sensor or something like a motion sensor or a door sensor, something like that on the left. And then we have the corresponding battery percentage for that sensor on the right. So again, horizontal stack. Some good cards to use for this are the binary sensor card as well as the binary sensor alert card. So the only difference between these is that it gives you a little red indicator or a red marker to just let you know that a binary sensor is actually going off, so that it's sort of a visual indicator to say that motion has been triggered or whatever it is. So those are the cards I like to use for that. So copy the code and then change your entity for the sensor that makes sense to you. We also want to add the battery percentage for this. So there is a dedicated battery card for this, which is a really nice card, and it shows you like this. It's also got configurable levels of battery percentage, so you can say at what percent the battery gets to. It should change color to warn you that the battery is getting low or getting to a warning level. So copy and paste, and then start setting your battery levels for those sensors or whatever you want to have in there. This charger type variable, this allows you to change the icon depending on what type of charger you have. So if you check the variables, it'll tell you exactly what the different icons are. For this one, I don't have an icon I want to set, so I don't actually need this variable, so we can get rid of there. And then in the warning level, that is at what percentage it will change to yellow. So I'll set that to 50%. And the danger level is at what percentage it changes to red. Just again, nice visual indicators that something or a battery is getting low so that you know to actually change it. We'll call this TRV. And if we hit refresh on there, so that now shows our binary sensor on the left, as well as the corresponding battery percentage on the right. The only thing I don't like here is obviously the label is overflowing. We can easily change that by just giving it a name. And that changes the name of the card so it all fits into the card so you can actually read it. That is looking actually really good for this room, and indeed everything we actually need to do for this room. Now if we click on the back button, it takes us back to our navigation page or the main page, and then we can click in and bring us into the room page where we then have our cards and graphs, and we can click into those and see more information as well as control the devices and see the sensors. That is basically it. That is all you need to do to create or exactly recreate the dashboard that I have. It's basically just a case of copying and pasting all of the code in here, and it kind of does get repetitive. You just need to go in, paste the code in and change the entities to match your ones. So all you need to do now is basically the exact same process that we did for the bathroom. Repeat that steps and just start creating all of your rooms in the exact same way that we did it. And make sure to create your room inside of the view folder and then link it inside of your includes in the main file too. And other than that, it's just pretty much repetitive copying and pasting of code and changing the entities to suit your needs. The navigation for the welcome card up at the top, so the home, light, security and lab, that is all done in the exact same way. So you just create a navigation inside of the view, and then you set the navigation up here to be whatever you want. For example, I've already created the bathroom navigation, so I could change the top card to say bathroom and then change the name of it, say bathroom, change the icon, and if I hit refresh, because I've already created this view, that navigation will now take me into the bathroom. The welcome card navigation is the exact same as you do any of the other room navigation too. That is all you need to know, and that is how you create this dashboard. The only other thing we didn't cover today was how to create some of the cards in the lab. Those are not yet added into Minimalist. I am still working on the code for those, but the other cards that I showed you that were custom cards have all been contributed, and I'll hopefully get those cards into the main repository as soon as possible so that you guys can also use them. Oh, before I forget, the only other thing you need to know is to get rid of this top bar. Again, like I mentioned, you just change the theme. So if you head into your profile and then select Minimalist and choose the mobile version and then go back to your dashboard, the top bar is now gone and you don't need any extra cards or anything like that to do it. If you want to have the navigation down at the bottom, then you change that over to the Minimalist mobile tap bar, and that is going to provide you with a nice tap bar at the bottom for easy selection of rooms if you want to. I prefer the clean look of just having nothing there, but again, just choose whichever one suits your needs. So that is how to create, in my opinion, the nicest looking mobile smart home dashboard in Home Assistant. As I mentioned, it is a lot more work than Mushroom, but I think it's worth it, and once you get into it, it is just a lot of copying and pasting and reusing code, and it does get straightforward once you've done a few of them. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it wasn't too long. I feel like it's going to be very long. We've definitely got our work cut out for us. Hopefully this is a lot easier to get out and edit than the previous video was. If you know, you know. Make sure to drop this video a like and get subscribed, and I will see you in the next video.